The book by Alfred Mahan laid the foundation of what we know today as a strong, imperialistic navy. In this book, the author goes into detail of how to become the most powerful nation. He uses Britain as an example and talks about the importance of trade and a strong navy for a successful and powerful nation. By the 1890s, Japan had its eyes set on imperializing the continent of Asia. Its first country of interest was China. Once China was conquered in 1895, Japan annexed Formosa, known as Taiwan, and forced China to recognize Korea as a country. China was sought out by the Japanese because of its natural resources, close proximity to Japan, and because of its large land mass. In theory, the Treaty of Versailles was signed to keep peace and not let any other nation become too powerful. Though the superpowers said this treaty was to avoid another world war, it was actually set up to punish the Germans. After the war, the Chinese had felt betrayed because students had learned that a Chinese warlord in Beijing had paid a sum of money to agree to Japan's taking over the German holdings. The Chinese viewed the peace treaty as a betrayal. The Treaty of Versailles granted Japan German colonies in Asia. These colonies were the Marianas, Carolina, and the Marshall Islands, but Japan wanted more. Just as Japan wanted China in the 1890s, that feeling still lingered. Also known as the Five-Power Treaty, this treaty was signed by the US, UK, France, Japan, and Italy. This treaty took place in Washington, D.C. from November 1921 to February 1922. This treaty agreed that it would prevent another arms race by limiting naval construction. In the 1930s, the U.S. had embargoed the Japanese because of their war in China and because of their antagonizing actions against the U.S. Japan is not a country with an abundant amount of natural resources, so they depended on American trade supplies. The Second Sino-Japanese War lasted from 1937 to 1945. In this war, Japan had again wanted to acquire China for its resources. The attack on Pearl Harbor, also known as the Battle of Pearl Harbor, took place on December 7, 1945. This was a surprise military strike by the Imperial Japanese Navy against the U.S. naval base at Pearl Harbor in Hawaii. Japan intended the attack as a preventative action to keep the U.S. Pacific Fleet from interfering with military actions of the Empire of Japan.